Level 1. The Peasant. You were born in a village that exists only to the people who live in it. No cartographer has ever written its name. No official in the capital has ever spoken it aloud. The walls of your home are mud and stone. The ceiling hangs low. 2 rooms for everything a family needs, one for sleeping, one for living. In the deep of winter, the animals come inside too. The mountains send down a cold that kills anything left unprotected. Your father works land that has never belonged to him. His father did the same, and the father before that. The land belongs to a sipahi, a cavalry soldier who was granted the right to tax your village by order of the Sultan himself. You have never stood in front of this man. You know his name. You know what he collects. A portion of the harvest, a portion of your labor, a toll whenever goods move toward market. You pay without argument, because there is no argument to make. There is no one to bring a complaint to. The sipahi answers to the provincial governor. The governor answers to Istanbul. Istanbul might as well be the moon. Spring means planting. Summer means watching over the wheat. Fall means moving fast. Rain at the wrong moment, and the whole year collapses. After the sipahi collects his share, after the state takes its tithe, what remains is yours. In a good year, it carries your family through to the next harvest. In a hard year, you consider borrowing, and then you do not borrow. You have watched debt swallow families whole. You eat less instead. The whole village eats less together. Your children work in the fields before they know their letters. Some never will learn them. Most will live and die inside this same valley, doing this same work. That is not a grief to you. It is simply what a life looks like here. Most lives come already shaped. Most people do not choose the shape. You know your prayers. You say them before the sky lightens. You understand the land the way you understand your own hands. You know your neighbors, who helped raise your wall back up after the floods took it, who left food at the door when your wife was too sick to cook. There is a man 3 plots east of you who opened his well to your family through an entire dry season and asked for nothing in return. You carry that. You will carry it until you die. There are no contracts in this village. There are no documents. A man's word, a witness, and the knowledge of where everyone sleeps. That is enough. That is almost everything.
Level 2. The Artisan. You were 14 when you left the village. Your uncle worked leather in a provincial town. He had no sons. He took you in. For 1 full year, you swept his workshop and watched. You memorized the way he drew the blade across a hide, the angle, the weight behind it, the spacing of each stitch. By the time he placed a knife in your hands already knew the motion. The guild crafts of the Ottoman Empire are the skeleton of every town of any size. The guild controls who may open a shop. It sets the acceptable range of prices. It enforces the standards of quality that protect the reputation of the trade. Your uncle was a member in good standing. His standing was your door. You entered as an apprentice. Your name went into the guild register. In the village, you were invisible to the state. Here, you existed on paper. After 5 years, you became a journeyman. After 10 more, you stood before senior masters, and they examined your work without sentiment. You did not shake. They accepted what you made. You opened your own shop on a street shared with 7 other leather workers. The competition was not brutal. The guild managed it. Nobody undercut prices overnight. Nobody expanded beyond their space. The system constrained you in ways that occasionally chafed, but it was reliable. You knew what you would earn. You knew what a year looked like before it began. Your neighbor could not simply decide to ruin the market on a Tuesday morning. The guild had its own obligations: charity for members who fell ill, contributions towards the mosque, presence at the processions that marked the empire's celebrations. You carried your guild's banner last summer when the governor returned from a campaign. Hundreds of artisans walked in a column, each trade in its assigned place. Shoemakers ahead of tailors, tailors ahead of the copper workers. You walked in the middle with the leather workers. For a moment, you felt the full weight of what you belonged to. Your wife comes from a family 2 streets over. You have 4 children, 3 survived infancy. You do not speak about the 4th. Your oldest son is already in the workshop. You recognize yourself in the way he handles a blade. That same deliberateness, that same quiet focus. When you are gone, he will sit in your chair. Level 3. The Soldier. You are a Janissary. You were not born to it, you were chosen for it. The Dev Shirma was how the empire reproduced its most elite soldiers, boys collected from Christian families in the Balkans and Anatolia, converted, renamed, remade. You were 8 years old. You remember the day the officials came to your village. You remember your mother's face. They chose you because you were healthy and sharp-eyed and tall beyond your years. 12 boys from your region went that year. You were given a Turkish name. You were brought to the capital. The training is total, and it never fully ends. Turkish, the Quran, military discipline, and above all, obedience. The first lesson, the last lesson, the lesson underneath every other lesson. The Janissary Corps belongs entirely to the Sultan. No family attachments, no inheritance, no wife until you rise high enough. You are a weapon shaped for a single hand. Your barracks is your world. The men you drill with, march with, and eat beside are the people who matter most to you. The shared cauldron is sacred in a way that outsiders have difficulty understanding. If the Corps refuses to lift it, that single gesture communicates everything the palace needs to know about the mood inside the barracks. When combat finally came, you understood the training completely. The Janissaries are the most feared infantry in the known world. You trained with firearms, while most European armies were still debating whether gunpowder had honor in it. Your lines hold under pressure that turns other soldiers into individuals, and individuals lose. You crossed a river under arrow fire once. You do not recall deciding to cross it. The men on your left were moving. The men on your right were moving. Your body moved with them. That is what belonging does to a man. You carry wounds that ache when the temperature drops. You always will. You have done things that stay behind your eyes in the dark. You will not speak of them. Your pay arrives on schedule. You do not take that for granted. An empire this vast pays poorly in some corners. Not yours.
Level 4. The Merchant. Your life is the road. Istanbul to Bursa to Aleppo to Cairo and back again. The roads are Ottoman roads. The caravanserais that line the major routes were built by the state, solid stone, free to use, safe by design. The sultans understood that trade generates wealth, and wealth sustains empire. They built the infrastructure, and then they maintained it. That is rarer than it sounds. You have traveled widely enough to know. Your goods are silk, spice, and cloth. Occasionally, things that travel better without precise labeling on the customs document. Every major checkpoint has its rates. Some rates appear in official ledgers. Others are understood between professionals. After 15 years on these roads, you know the difference without asking. Your grandfather was a small trader in a provincial market. Your father expanded what he built. You expanded what your father built. Your warehouse in Bursa holds more goods than your grandfather ever saw gathered in one place. You hold no title, no one grants you rank, but you know which port official processes a manifest without unnecessary delay. You know which road turns treacherous in late autumn, and which stretch has drawn bandits since the garrison post washed away. You know which merchant in Aleppo is as reliable as a sealed contract, and which one finds errors in the weights after the handshake. Information is the actual trade. Silk and spice are what it looks like when information moves through the world in physical form. You pay your taxes because the math is simple. The alternative costs more. You attend Friday prayers because the relationships built there are part of how business functions. You are not cynical about the faith. You are practical about everything, including what you believe. Stability is good for trade. Instability is a disaster you have studied carefully. Your father watched two pashas fight over a border town for 4 months. The road closed. Caravans waited in the mud at both ends. 3 merchants your father knew lost everything that year. You carry that story the way other men carry prayers.
Level 5. The Scholar. You are an alim, a man formed by religious learning. 15 years in the madrasas, moving through a curriculum designed by the Ottoman state to produce judges, teachers, and legal thinkers. You read Arabic and Persian. You can trace a fine point of Hanafi jurisprudence across hours of argument without losing the thread. The Ilmiya hierarchy is a career structure with clear rungs. The teacher in a provincial madrasa shapes boys who will grow into craftsmen, soldiers, and farmers. Above him, the instructor at a major urban institution. Above that, the Qadi, the judge, who applies Islamic law every working day. Above that, the Kazasker, who oversees legal affairs for entire regions. At the top, in Istanbul, sits the Sheikh al-Islam. His fatwa can give religious legitimacy to whatever the Sultan intends to do or deny it. You are a Qadi in a city of 40,000. Every morning you hear disputes. Property boundaries that 3 generations have argued over, inheritance claims where the arithmetic refuses to cooperate, contracts written in good faith that soured when prices shifted before delivery, theft accusations carried by a witness list that raises questions, domestic conflicts that sat quietly for years and finally arrived at your door because someone ran out of patience. You apply the Sharia as read through the Hanafi school. A court scribe records every ruling. The registers accumulate decade by decade, an unplanned documentary history of this city's ordinary life. You serve God and you serve the state. Most of the time, those 2 obligations point the same direction. Occasionally, they require genuine thought that the texts alone cannot supply. Last month, 2 brothers sat 2 feet apart in your courtroom with conflicting accounts of what their father intended when he divided his estate. Both versions contained truth. You found the path the law offered, and you followed it. Whether you found the right destination is something only time will reveal. Some days, the law is clear, and the case resolves before the morning is over. Other days, 2 honest people sit across from each other, and both are right and both are wrong in different proportions that the law can only approximate. Those are the days that follow you home. Those are the days you turn over in the dark when the city is gone quiet.
Level 6. The Provincial Governor. You are a bey, governor of a sanjak, an administrative district that might sit anywhere from the Balkans to the edge of Persia. The Sultan appointed you on the recommendation of your patron inside the central government. The appointment is not guaranteed to last. You serve at his pleasure. Perform well and you advance to a larger province. If your patron loses standing in Istanbul, Your post is quietly reassigned before you have time to object. The work is larger than anyone outside it imagines. Tax collection across every district under your authority. The numbers going to Istanbul must be clean, because discrepancies invite questions that cost more than any shortfall. The military readiness of the Sipahi cavalry in your territory. Public order, which sounds manageable until you are actually responsible for it. Appeals that the local qadis cannot resolve. Petitions from merchants whose goods were seized at a checkpoint. Complaints from village headmen about soldiers who decided a farmhouse was adequate launching without asking. Everything that has no other destination lands on your desk. You adjudicate all of it. You also build things. A mosque with your name over the door. A working fountain that the neighborhood did not have before. A repaired bridge that saves 2 days on a trade route. The governor who leaves something visible behind is remembered. The one who leaves nothing is forgotten before his replacement's horse reaches the city gate. You intend to be remembered. There are enemies, rivals inside the administrative hierarchy, sending careful letters to Istanbul. Local power brokers who resent the reminder that their influence is conditional on your goodwill. You manage them through access. Who gets an appointment with you and who waits? 2 years ago, there was a village. A local strongman had been running his own informal tax system on top of the official levy for a decade. Every governor before you received the petitions. Nothing changed. You sent 4 soldiers and a written order. The man spent 6 months in a cell. His arrangements dissolved. At harvest, the villagers sent you dried figs. You accepted them. It cost you nothing. It meant everything to them. That is what the work actually is.
Level 7. The Vizier. You sit in the Divan, the Imperial Council, the working mechanism of the largest empire on Earth. The viziers gather in Topkapi Palace and move the business of a state that spans 3 continents. Military campaigns requiring years of preparation and expenditure before a single regiment moves. Tax policy calibrated for provinces with entirely different economies. Legal disputes that have exhausted every lower venue. Diplomatic correspondence with the King of France, the Doge of Venice, the Shah of Persia, and a dozen other rulers who want something from the empire or fear something from it. You arrived here through 2 decades of careful, patient service, an exceptional record as a governor, a reputation for competence and loyalty built over years and protected at some cost. Relationships cultivated with the right men near the Sultan. The right men, because choosing wrong ones is fatal to a career. Several viziers sit at the table. The Grand Vizier, the Sadrazam, holds the imperial seal and runs daily governance in the Sultan's name. The Sultan himself rarely enters the council chamber. He observes through a latticed screen. Everyone in the room is aware of this at every moment and conducts themselves accordingly. The political climate of the Divan shifts without warning. Alliances that were solid last season develop fractures. You have survived 2 Grand Viziers who fell from power, one replaced quietly, one not. Surviving required reading the court's temperature accurately and withdrawing from weakening factions before the collapse arrived. You are not entirely proud of every calculation that kept you in this room. You made them anyway. The alternative was disappearing from political life in a manner that was neither quiet nor dignified. You remember the 3rd Vizier under the previous Grand Vizier. He was at dinner when the message came. He was gone before the plates were cleared. His name was removed from the records within the week. You think of him sometimes mid-session when you catch yourself selecting words with more precision than the words strictly require.
Level 8. The Grand Vizier.
The Sultan placed the imperial seal in your hands. That moment sits in your memory with a sharpness that ordinary moments never achieve. The seal means you are the empire's daily voice, not the Sultan, who is also the empire, but you, conducting its business on every ordinary day that does not require the Sultan's direct presence. You manage campaigns that move hundreds of thousands of men across terrain that would break a lesser institution. Conscription, supply lines, alliances with rulers whose loyalty tracks closely with your most recent favor. Treasury flows from customs, land taxes, tribute, and trade monopolies across regions that most of your subordinates have never visited. Documents you sign alter the lives of millions of people who will never learn your name. The weight of it is permanent. It never lifts. Every success belongs to the Sultan. That is how the position has always worked and always will work. Every failure belongs to you alone, personally, immediately. Grand viziers are replaced when they stop being useful. They are replaced when they offend. They are replaced when a well-placed faction convinces the Sultan that another man would serve better. Some former grand viziers retire to provincial estates. Others lose rather more than their position in the same week they surrender the seal. You accepted this when you accepted the post. You accepted it because you believed you were capable of the work, and because watching someone less capable carry it was an alternative you found genuinely intolerable. That is the honest account. This position requires complete honesty with yourself above everything else. Self-deception at this level produces catastrophes. Your scarcest resource is your own time. Requests arrive in volumes that cannot be processed by any single person. You learned early in the first year that you had to identify the person in each bureau who truly understood their area and trust their summary. You were still trying to read every document yourself. It was grinding you down. That lesson cost you a year.
Level 9. The Prince. You are an Ottoman prince. You were born into a world of extraordinary preparation and extraordinary peril, and both conditions are absolute. Your father is the Sultan. Your brothers are rivals in a way that no brother raised outside the palace can comprehend. The Ottoman succession does not follow the European model of a guaranteed eldest son. The throne passes to the son capable of seizing it and holding it. In the early centuries, this produced open warfare between brothers, civil conflict sometimes while the father still lived. The empire eventually codified what had always occurred in practice. When a sultan took power, his brothers were executed with a silk cord. The silk was a courtesy. Royal blood was not to touch a blade. You grew up knowing this. Every prince knows this. The knowledge is never stated plainly. It occupies the room during every family gathering like furniture that everyone sees and no one names. Your education has been extraordinary. Languages, military history and strategy, poetry, music, law, the arts of governance. You were prepared for a throne. You were also prepared for a death. In more recent generations, the killing of princes was replaced by confinement, the kafes, a closely supervised section of the palace where princes live comfortably but without access to the outside world, without the ability to build networks or accumulate influence. You have lived inside these walls for 11 years. You are 32. You know the Quran and 3 languages. You have read military histories of every campaign the empire has ever conducted. You have never ridden a horse beyond these walls. You have never governed a city. You have never made a decision that affected anyone outside this palace. If your brother dies tomorrow without an heir, you walk out of here into the most complex administrative apparatus in the world, fully educated and entirely untested at the same moment. Your tutor is 60 years old. He served under your grandfather. 3 times a week, he tells you things that no book records. The year 2 provinces failed in the same harvest, and the viziers argued for weeks about which region to save first. The campaign planned over 18 months and abandoned in 2 days when the intelligence collapsed. You listen carefully. You take notes. You wait.
Level 10. The Sultan. You are Suleiman. You are Selim. You are Mehmed, who rode into Constantinople at 21 and transformed a fallen city into the beating heart of a civilization. You are the shadow of God on earth. That is not rhetoric to the men who serve you. It is a title, a theology, an entire civilization organized around the premise that your authority descends from the divine and is absolute in its exercise. You have fought campaigns across 3 continents and signed treaties that redrew the world. You have raised mosques and hospitals, ordered bridges and legal codes that will bear your name long after your body is in the ground. You have put men to death who failed you, and elevated men who surprised you. Sometimes those were the same man at different points in their lives. At its reach, the empire extends from the walls of Vienna to the Persian Gulf to the shores of North Africa. 40 million people rise each morning inside borders maintained by your armies, your administrators, your legal scholars, your infrastructure. They are held together by systems that you either inherited or built. You eat alone at a table set for 20. No one sits with you uninvited. Rooms empty at your approach. You are surrounded by people every hour of every day, and you are profoundly, completely alone. That solitude ceased to feel like a price long ago. It feels like weather now, a condition that simply exists and has always existed. Your sons are educated somewhere behind their carefully managed lives inside the palace. You watch them, and they watch you. You love them, and you do not trust them. Both of those things are true simultaneously, and neither of them cancels the other. One of them will occupy this room when you no longer do. Only one. You do not allow yourself to dwell on the others. You have spent your reign building things designed to outlast you. The laws you codified will run without your hand. The mosques will stand when your name is encountered only in manuscripts. The caravanserais on the Anatolian roads will shelter merchants 2 centuries after your death. That is what a reign is measured by, not its duration, but its residue. Somewhere in a stone village in an unnamed valley, a boy is being born right now. His father works the land that will never belong to him. His grandfather did the same work before him. That boy will learn the prayers, work the fields, pay what is owed to the state and the sipahi and the grain collector. He will live entirely inside a system that men like you conceived, and men who answer to men who answer to you sustain. You will never see his face. His life and yours are connected by 10,000 threads of law and labor and faith and force. You are at the summit, looking across a world you govern. He is at the base, holding it up. Neither of you exists without the other. The wheel keeps turning.